Welcome to the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. This lecture is intended for students enrolled in the Academy's Latin vocabulary course. If you're not enrolled and would like to join us for self-paced studies that include study materials, online quizzes, graded assignments, lectures like this, records, and support, visit classicalliberalarts.com. My name is William Michael. I'm the Academy headmaster, and I'll be leading this study through Latin vocabulary. In this first lesson, we're going to study a dialogue in Latin between a schoolmaster, the magister, and a school student, the puer. We're going to read this dialogue to learn some basic Latin vocabulary, but also to gain an introduction to the course in general. I'll begin the lesson by reading the Latin text in full so that students who are getting started with Latin studies can hear proper pronunciation of the Latin text and can follow along. So before we move forward, I recommend you get your lesson opened up in front of you, whether you've got it printed out or it's on your computer, so that you can follow along as I go through the reading. After I read through the text, we'll divide the text into its significant parts, and then we'll study every line of the text as we go through the interpretation. But before we get started with that, let's take a minute to commit our time to the Lord and pray for His blessing upon our studies. Let us pray. Lord our God, in your wisdom and love, you surround us with the mysteries of the universe. Send your Spirit upon us and fill us with your wisdom and blessings. Grant that we may devote ourselves to our studies and draw ever closer to you, the source of all knowledge. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So let's begin by simply reading through the Latin text. Again, I encourage you to follow along, and our goal for this reading is simply to become comfortable with the proper pronunciation of the Latin text. You'll notice in the text that the lines of the dialogue alternate between the master and the boy, the magister and the puer, and you'll see lines labeled M when the magister is speaking and P when the puer is speaking. So you can see the back and forth dialogue. We begin with the magister. He says, Veni puer dice sapere. Veni puer dice sapere. The puer then replies, Quid hoc est sapere? Quid hoc est sapere? The master answers and says, Intelligere recte, agere recte, et eloqui recte omnia necessaria. Intelligere recte, agere recte, et eloqui recte omnia necessaria, or necessaria. The puer then replies, Quis docebit me hoc? Quis docebit me hoc? The magister answers, Ego cum Deo, ego cum Deo. The puer then asks, Quomodo? Quomodo? The magister responds, Ducam te per omnia, ostendam tibi omnia, nominabo tibi omnia. Ducam te per omnia, ostendam tibi omnia, nominabo tibi omnia. The puer then responds, En ad sum, duc me in nomine Dei. En ad sum, duc me in nomine Dei. The Magister replies, ante omnia debes discere simplices sonos ex quibus sermo humanus constat, quos animalia sciunt formare, et tua lingua scit imitari, et tua manus potest pingere. Postea ibimus mundum, et spectabimus omnia. Hic habes vivum et vocale alphabetum. So this is the dialogue between the Magister and the Puer, and now we'll go through and divide it into its parts, and then we'll study every single line that we've read here so everything is crystal clear. Let's divide this text into 4 important parts. The first part, beginning at the start of the dialogue, is the call to wisdom, or the invitation to wisdom, where the master says, Veni puer, dice sapere. He says, come, boy, learn to be wise. The call to wisdom, part 1. Part 2 will identify as the place where the Magister says, intelligere recte, and so on. There he gives a definition of wisdom. So part 2 will be the definition of wisdom. Part 3, the master explains how he will go about teaching this lesson. So we have the method of teaching, and that begins where the master says, ducam te per omnia. And part 4, the last part, we'll call the foundation of learning. The master says, ante omnia debes dicere simplices sonos. Ante omnia, the foundation of learning. So 4 significant parts of this lesson, into which we'll divide it for the sake of study. And having done that, let's go ahead and get to the interpretation, and we'll study every single line. Remember, the goal of every lesson is to study so that you understand every sentence in the reading. Every sentence. Every sentence represents a complete idea, and therefore we work to study and understand every sentence in the lesson. I'll do my best to walk you through every sentence that we come across, but you're going to need to devote yourself to the study of the lesson until you are comfortable with every sentence in the lesson. So let's go ahead and get started. The dialogue begins with the Magister, or master, saying to the boy, Veni puer, dice sapere. Veni puer, dice sapere. The master invites the boy to study. He says, Veni puer. Veni means come. Puer means boy. Come, boy. Dice sapere. Dice means learn, and sapere means to be wise. So the Magister gives the boy 2 commands, Veni and dice. Come and learn. The word sapere means to be wise. So it's important to note that the Magister doesn't say to the boy, come and I'll teach you about Latin vocabulary. Come and I'll teach you about this or that subject. He invites the boy to the true goal of learning, which is to become wise. Come, boy, learn to be wise. This is the right goal of our studies, and it should be the goal for our studies in this course. If anyone ever asks, why are you studying Latin? The correct answer is because I am seeking wisdom, and the study of Latin is a part of the pursuit of wisdom. It's really that simple. After being invited to study, the puer does what a good student should do. He asks for some clarification. He says, quid hoc est sapere? Quid hoc est sapere? The word quid, which introduces a question, means what? Quid, what? Hoc means this, and est means is. Quid hoc est? What this is. Now notice the word order in Latin is not the same that we usually use in English. What I would like to recommend to you is that you not change words around to make them sound better in English, but that rather you learn to think in the original order of the Latin words. The Romans and people who lived through European history who spoke Latin did not translate the Latin into English and move words all around to understand it. They heard it in the original word order and understood it. So we have to learn to think in the order of ideas that we'll find when we read Latin. So, quid hoc est, what this is, sapere, to be wise. The boy asks, what this is to be wise. And in the next line, the magister answers the boy, and this is the second part of our lesson. The magister gives the boy a definition of wisdom. So here we have a definition of wisdom, and it consists of 3 parts. Let's look at what the magister says. He says, intelligere recte. This is the first part. Intelligere recte. Now you may look at that word intelligere and say, that word looks familiar. It looks like the word intelligent. And intelligent means smart or having understanding. This Latin word, intelligere, is where that word intelligent comes from. Intelligere means to understand. To understand. Intelligere, to understand. And recte means rightly or truly. Intelligere recte, to understand rightly. That's the first part of wisdom. The second part is agere recte. Agere recte. In English, we have the word agent. An agent is a person who does something. Agere means to do. It's where that word agent comes from. Agere, to do or to act. Recte, rightly. So intelligere recte, to understand rightly. Agere recte, to act rightly. And next, the third part of the definition, et means and, eloquui means to speak, recte, rightly. If a person speaks very well, we say that that person is eloquent. That word eloquent comes from this Latin word eloquui. Eloquui means to speak. Eloqui recte, to speak rightly. So the 3 parts of wisdom, intelligere recte, agere recte, et eloqui recte. To understand rightly, to act rightly, and to speak rightly. And then, what are we supposed to understand, do, and speak rightly? Omnia necessaria. Omnia necessaria, which means all things necessary. Everything necessary. Omnia means all things. Necessaria means necessary. So, intelligere recte, agere recte, et eloqui recte omnia necessaria. That's the magister's response to the boy's question, quid hoc est, sapere. After hearing the master's definition of wisdom, the boy asks another question. The puer asks, quis docebit me hoc? Quis docebit me hoc? Quis introduces a question. It means who. Don't get it confused with quid. We saw quid earlier. Quid means what? Quis means who. Quis docebit. Docebit means shall teach. Quis docebit? Who shall teach? Me looks like the English word me, and that's what it means. Quis docebit me? Who shall teach me? And hoc, we've already seen the word hoc earlier. Hoc means this. Quis docebit me hoc? Who shall teach me this? So the boy asks the master, who's going to teach me? Quis docebit me hoc? And the magister answers and says, ego, cum Deo. ego cum Deo. Ego means I. So the master says, I shall teach you. Ego. But then he says, cum Deo. Cum means with. And Deo means God. So ego cum Deo means I with God. In other words, he says, I'm going to teach you with God's help. And it's important to see the attitude of the Magister, that he's humble. He sees himself as the teacher, but he sees that he's dependent on God's help for any success in teaching his student. The boy then asks another question. Being a good student, asks another question. He asks, quo modo? Quo modo? Quo modo means how, or in what way. How are you going to teach me? Quo modo? And the master answers and explains the method of his teaching. He says, ducam te per omnia. Ducam means I shall lead. Te means you. Before we saw me means me, te means you. Ducam te, I shall lead you per omnia. Per means through. Omnia, we've already seen that, it means all things. Ducam te per omnia. I shall lead you through all things. He then says, ostendam tibi omnia. Ostendam means I will show. I will show tibi. Tibi means to you. I will show to you omnia, all things. And then he says, nominabo tibi omnia. Nominabo means I shall name, or I will teach you the names. I shall name tibi for you, omnia, all things. Ducam te per omnia. I shall lead you through all things. Ostendam tibi omnia. I shall show to you all things. Nominabo tibi omnia. I shall name for you all things. The teacher explains the method that he's going to use. Next, hearing this, the boy is excited. The puer says, en ad sum. En ad sum. En is an interjection. He says, look, en. And then he says, ad sum. Ad sum means I am present. Here I am. En ad sum. Look, I am present. Here I am. Duc me, lead me, in nomine Dei. In means in, nomine means the name, and Dei means of God. Duc me in nomine Dei. Lead me in the name of God. The Magister then explains more of his teaching, and he teaches the boy what needs to be done first. He says, ante omnia. Ante omnia. The boy is ready to go, but the master says, ante omnia, before all things. Ante means before, and omnia means all things. Ante omnia. Debes dicere simplices sonos. Debes dicere simplices sonos. Debes, you ought. You ought dicere, to learn. Simplices, that just means simple. Sonos means sounds. Before all things, so before we get started with Latin vocabulary, you ought, debes, to learn, dicere, simple sounds. Simplices sonos. Ex quibus. Ex means out of or from, and quibus means which. Ex quibus. From which sermo humanus constat. Sermo means speech. Humanus means human. And constat means consists or is made of. So before we get started, before all things, you ought to learn the simple sounds from which human speech consists. He then goes on and says, quos animalia sciunt formare. Quos means which, animalia means the animals, sciunt means they know, which the animals know, formare, to form or to make. So he's saying that the animals know how to make all of the simple sounds of human language. We can learn them by thinking of the sounds that animals make. He then says, et, you see the symbol called ampersand. It's a symbol of the Latin word et. It means and. Tua means your. Lingua means tongue. The word language comes from the Latin word tongue. Tua lingua, your tongue. Scit means nose. Imitari means to imitate. Your tongue knows to imitate. Et tua manus, and your manus, hand, potest, is able, pingere, to draw or to write. So he says, before we get started, you ought to learn the simple sounds from which human speech consists, which the animals know to make, and your tongue knows to imitate, and your hand is able to draw. He then says, postea ibimus mundum. Postea means afterwards. The word post means after, and ea means these things. Post ea. After these things, ibimus. Ibimus means we shall go. And then mundum means to the world or into the world. Postea ibimus mundum. Afterwards we shall go into the world. Et spectabimus omnia. Et means and, spectabimus means we shall see, omnia, all things. And then lastly he says, hic habes vivum et vocale alphabetum. Hic habes vivum et vocale alphabetum. Hic means here. Habes means you have. Vivum means living. Et means and. Vocale means vocal. That means you can hear it and speak it. And alphabetum means an alphabet, a list of the letters of a language with the sounds made by those letters. So he says, after these things we shall go into the world, et spectabimus omnia, and we shall see everything. Hic, here, habes, you have, vivum et vocale alphabetum, a living and vocal alphabet. And then in the book, if you look at the original book, you'll see that there's a couple of pages where the author lists all of the letters of the Latin alphabet, and he shows all of the different places in nature where we find that sound being made. Some are natural forces like the wind, some are animals like sheep and frogs and dogs. But he shows a way that you can think of all the sounds of the different Latin letters by thinking of sounds we hear in the natural world, and he calls that the living and vocal alphabet. And so it's just a fun way to teach young students how to pronounce the letters of the Latin language. So if you struggle to understand pronunciation, you can take a few minutes and study that living and vocal alphabet that's provided in the book. But most students are usually a little older, and just from these lessons, hearing and reading the Latin, they can learn to pronounce things rightly. So if you need more practice with pronunciation, you can take a look at that interesting way of teaching, but otherwise we can go ahead and move on. What I'd like to give you since we've covered all the content of the lesson, I'd like to give you 7 points that are worth memorizing, 7 important points. Let me go through them one at a time here. Number 1, wisdom means to understand rightly, to act rightly, and to speak rightly about all necessary things. Wisdom means to understand rightly, to act rightly, and speak rightly about all necessary things. Number 2, learning requires both a human teacher, whether that's a living teacher or in a book that a teacher has written, and God's help. God's help to help us to overcome the weaknesses that we're born with, and to fulfill our potential to learn. So learning requires both a human teacher and God's help. Number 3, education must begin with the basic sounds of human speech. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we call this the study of grammar. And the first part of grammar is called orthography, which has to do with the study of letters and their sounds. Education must begin with the basic sounds of human speech. Number 4, human speech distinguishes us from animals and allows rational communication. Human speech distinguishes us from animals and allows rational communication. Number 5, the student must approach learning with humility and reverence for God. The student must approach learning with humility and reverence for God. Number 6, the teacher's role is to lead, to show, and name all things for the young student. The teacher's role is to lead, show, and name all things for the student. And lastly, number 7, language is the foundation for studying the world around us. Language is the foundation for studying the world around us. In the old schools, the word grammar, grammatica, was called the janua artium, which means the gateway of all the arts, the way to enter into all studies. Language is the foundation for studying the world around us. So we've gone through the reading of this text. We've looked at the meaning of every word that's in the lesson. We talked a little bit about teaching itself and studying. So having done all of that, it's now time for you to go to your lesson, reread the lesson on your own, practice good Latin pronunciation, study the meanings of all of the words, and develop your mastery of this lesson by completing all of the assessments on the course page in the Studium. Make sure you know the English meanings of every Latin word that you see in the vocabulary lesson. Make sure you can translate it. You can even challenge yourself to give the English word and see if you can think of the Latin word. The quizzes in the lesson will help you to do this. The written exercises will also help you to do this, but work to develop and demonstrate your mastery for this lesson. If you have any questions or need any help, what you should do is go to the Latin vocabulary course page and post any questions you have on the support forum at the top of the course page. Either I or other students in the course who are maybe more experienced than you will be able to help you with any questions you have about any of the Latin words or pronunciation or the meanings of anything. Feel free to post any questions you have on the course forum. Once again, my name is William Michael. I'm the headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and I hope that this lecture has been helpful. God bless your studies.